Welcome back to Unfiltered the podcast. I'm your host, Kay, and today we're doing something raw, honest, and necessary. This isn't a surface level conversation. This is about the men who survived themselves. I've got three powerful guests with me today. Three men who have lived addiction, lived the stigma, lived the pain, and lived the comeback. Not the Instagram version, not the polished, I'm fine now version, but the sleepless nights, the relapses, the jail time, the shame, the rebuilding, and the recovery that doesn't just happen once. It happens every single morning they open their eyes. Today we're talking the then, the now, how and why. Who they were in active addiction, who they are as men in recovery, how they climbed out, and why they chose to stay alive when quitting felt easier. If you're listening and you ever felt like you never get out, like you'll never be forgiven, like you'll never be more than your worst moment. This episode is proof that you're more than there's more to the story, does not end where it broke you. A gentle reminder, this is a trigger warning because some of our stories are going to get very touchy on addiction, incarceration, relapse, trauma, and mental health. So please take care of yourself first when you're listening. Also, Um, so let's get into it. Let's get unfiltered, let's get honest, and let's get into it. Let's introduce our guest is Jeremy. Jeremy, we have Pat, and then we have Mike. The then, when you look back at the version of yourself in active addiction, what do you remember most? The chaos, the numbness, or the survival mode? Okay,
Uh, I got the question. That's a tough one. Um, probably oh man, probably the survival mode, I would say.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, Pat.
First off, I just want to thank Unfiltered for having this platform and allowing us all to speak, especially men, because I know it can be difficult for men to talk about their mental health and everything. So I just want to give a shout out to the Unfiltered podcast for even holding a space for men to talk about their mental health. When I think about the question, I think like Jeremy touched on it, it's tough to like pinpoint exactly what it was because I think all three coincide with one another, right? Like, the survival mode to get the next one, the the numbness that came from the drugs, and the chaos that encompassed my life. Um, they all ran hand to hand. I brought chaos into my life, uh, doing the things I needed to do to survive, to get the next one, to stay numb. So if I had to pinpoint one, I would imagine it would be more of the chaotic life that I was living due to the lifestyle and due to the things I needed to do in order to get the next one.
Mike?
Oh, yeah, I agree with the other two gentlemen. That's a hard one. Mine would probably be the chaos. The chaos for me though was I didn't realize it was chaos at the time. I didn't realize that the whirlwind that was around me was chaos because what I was doing was I was working in the service industry for a lot of that, and it was fun all the time. But looking back at it, it's like that was a whirlwind tornado of just craziness. Honestly, it was sleepless nights caused by myself. It was sleeping all day caused by myself. But yeah, it was complete chaos looking back at it.
Thank you, Mike. Um, What was the moment you realized you weren't living anymore, just existing?
Oh man, I mean, there was probably plenty of moments. Um, I'd be lying if I told you like there was this one moment where I just said, "Oh my God, I'm just existing." Um, I think, I mean, there's many, you know, I remember selling my daughter's Christmas present to get high. And, um, you know, she was like 3 years old or 4 years old. And I know that was like a moment of, you know, right after I did it, like, what is going on? Like, you know, um, but you know, like it kind of goes back to survival mode. I was like survival mode. I had to, you know, I had to do what I had to do to get high, no matter who was in my way. And you know, I would say there was just so many different moments where, you know, I mean, because I was in and out of rehab, what, 35 times, 36 times, halfway houses, prison, jail, whatever. When I would get clean is when I would realize that I was just existing. But when you're in active addiction, I think it's hard to imagine that you're just existing. I think you really think you're doing what you got to do to survive, and it doesn't really matter. You know, it kind of goes back to your last question. You're you're numb to all the shit that you're doing, because you got to survive. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Jeremy. Pat?
I think the point where I felt like I was just existing is when the drugs stopped working and I was just waking up and having to repeat the same cycle over and over and over again just to be okay with the day, and not wanting to leave the area I was in because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to find what I needed to find. Um, Worrying about what I was going to do the next day in order to get the next one. Constantly checking my bank account to see if I had money in there to go buy more. You know, and like not having any hopes or aspirations for anything else but to use the next day. You know what I mean? And that's when I and like Jeremy said, like I can't. When you're in it, you don't really realize it. It wasn't until like the drugs were out of my system and I had some clarity in my mind that I was like, wow, like I was really just like I was doing okay at that time. I thought I was like living life and like being responsible and doing all the things I needed to do when really I was just surviving. You know what I mean? I wasn't really living; I was just surviving. So yeah, that was that moment.
Thank you, Pat.
For mine, it was anytime I wasn't using. Honestly, when I would run out of money usually, or just something would happen, and I would start to sober up, is when I would realize that. When I knew it was early on, well, not to take that back, it wasn't early on, but it was it was earlier on. And I woke up one morning and I remember having to do something to be able to get out of bed. I remember having to do stuff to just be able to function for the day, like not getting sick, not just just having to do something. And when you go back into doing it again, like Jeremy was saying, you're back in it again. You put all that to the back, because it's like, oh well, I can do this. I'm good, and you're not. Like you're literally just. It feels like you're you, but not you. It's almost just like you're a shell of yourself, without sounding too cliche.
Thank you, Mike. As a man, did you feel like you had to hide the pain that pushed you into using?
Uh, um, yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, on the streets, you can't show weakness. So it wasn't like, I could go to my people that I was using with or using around and say, hey, you know, um, I'm feeling like crap, man. I'm not taking care of my kids. Like, homeless. Kids don't want nothing to do with me. Like, you know, I'm suicidal. Like you can't talk like that on the streets. So you have to hide. I mean, you have to hide everything when you're using. When you're in active addiction, you are basically a chameleon. You have to blend in wherever you got to blend in, and you got to say whatever you got to say, but your true feelings get stuffed, you know, so far down. I think when you do finally get clean, they're in your socks pretty much. So, um, yeah, that's for sure, definitely.
Thank you, Jeremy. Pat?
Uh, yeah, like Jeremy was saying, absolutely. You know, part of my story is I ran with like some pretty dangerous people, and if you show weakness like that, one, you won't be respected, and two, if you showed any type of weak emotion, you got punked on, and you got uh, beat up, or you got bullied, or you know what I mean. And even like in my family life, like I was taught like men don't cry. You know what I mean? This is before the drugs. So like I was taught at a very young age, you don't show emotion, you don't show weakness, you don't show that you're sad, you don't show that you're hurt, because that's just what men don't do. And I can remember being at my grandmother's funeral, and I was real little, and I must have been like maybe like 4, maybe 5, and I started to cry, and my dad like looked at me and said, "You don't do that. You have to be strong for your mother. You do that later." And so it was instilled in me at a young age, like men don't show emotions. We're the ones that are supposed to keep our emotions in check, and that's like what women do. You know what I mean? We have to be the strong ones for them. Um, so yeah, even before active addiction, I was taught like men don't show emotions like that. So yeah.
Thank you, Pat. Mike?
Okay, Pat, thanks for stealing all mine. No, I was pretty much, I was raised the same way though. I mean, it was, be a man, you know, put your big boy pants on, things like that. It was, men don't cry. So when you're in a position where you're, you don't realize how vulnerable you are when you're in that state until much later on. And because the people around you are just saying, here, just one more, or here, just one more of this, one more of that, or whatever. And you get to a point, I mean, there's not a particular time, but throughout all of it, there's points where you're just like, I don't know what I can do anymore. I don't, there's, your brain just goes into a point where it's almost like you go over the hill to the other side where it's like all the dark stuff is. And then you're just like, this is horrible. This is not okay. But who are you going to tell? Who are you going to tell? Because if you tell your family, then they're going to do an intervention or something like that with you, which you're going to be scared of because you're afraid of, getting clean and sober because of the effects of it, those first few days. Who are you going to tell? You sure can't go to the people around you. They're just going to look at you and go, really? Here, have this. And no, so no, I mean, you have to disguise it all the time. Even like with me being in the service industry around, people partying all the time or whatever, there's nobody you can go to there. I mean, they say there is, but there's nobody you can go to.
Thank you, Mike. The now. The man or the men, you guys are in recovery. Who are you now that you never imagined you'd become during addiction?
Oh wow. I am a father. I'm a husband. I am a loving father and husband. I am a friend. Um, I am a business owner. Um, I am a man of integrity, I like to believe. Um, I am probably, without, I don't want to sound like, I mean, it's hard talking about yourself like this, to be honest.
Can
Uh,
can I say some things about you? Because I know a lot of things about you.
Go
He
ahead.
is
Sure,
he
man, you
is
got
the man that once I got out of jail, took me off the streets and put me in a recovery house. He saved my life, literally with the help of others. His wife was my sponsor for years,
it.
and that she literally saved me as well. I literally made her my sponsor because she looked like a bitch. And I was like, that's the person I need. That's the person I need.
Yeah,
And that is the person I need because that person will not will tell me how it is.
yep,
And he has so many recovery houses. Oh, there she goes. I'm talking shit and there she goes in the comments. But he has so many things. My
uh,
bad. But
uh,
they are a powerhouse
yeah.
together. And but
Thank
he
you.
has overcame so many things. Same thing I could say for Pat. Same thing I could say for Mike. They have
Yeah,
overcame so many things. That's why I was like, these three men would be a powerhouse to come up here and talk to you guys
yeah.
and be blessed by their stories. But
Let
yeah,
me just say this though. Final disclaimer. I still have a long way to go. Um, as far as where I want to be. You know, like as a man, I always you always can I think find things that you need to improve on. So I'm nowhere there, but I do enjoy I like who I am today. I'll just put it like that. It boils down to that. So thanks
okay.
for that question.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Sure.
Pat,
All right, so the man I am today. Um, I'm a son. Uh, I'm a uncle. Um, and I'll brag a little bit. I'm probably the favorite uncle out of all the uncles. I never imagined like showing up to my niece's house or birthday party or an event and me walking into the room and them looking at me and screaming my name and running over and giving me a hug, right? Like that, an active addiction that would have never happened, right? I wouldn't be present. I show up for people today. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. Um, I walk with integrity. I'm honest, sometimes a little too honest. Um, and Jeremy touched on it too. Is like I'm still nowhere where I want to be, right? But I'm somewhere. And I think for the longest, I thought recovery meant like you need to have all these external things in order to be considered recovering. And what I've found is like the recovery process for me is more of an internal thing. Like for most of my life, I didn't love myself, and I can say today like I love myself more than I ever have before. But there's still more growth to happen because there are some days where I still don't. I'm still not happy with like myself and how I'm behaving and what I'm doing and you know that's why I believe recovery is a continuous journey. There's no like endpoint to it. You know what I mean? There's no like certificate at the end of it saying you're recovered. I don't necessarily believe we ever become recovered. Um, and I'm grateful for the journey that I've been on so far.
thank you, Pat. Mike,
So I'm gonna keep the camera off for this one. Uh, I am everything I wasn't. I am a brother. I am an uncle. Um, and most importantly, I'm a dad. And sorry, I know that I can wake up tomorrow and be there if somebody needs me. I know I can. I don't have to worry about being under the influence if the gods forbid that something happens with my daughter. Is that I know I can be there. I know there's no issue of that. I know I can go to events. I know that if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I need you," I can be there. It, my daughter is my number one, and always will be. Sorry, but yeah, my that's my biggest thing is being a dad, but just being there and present and actually being present, not just the shell of me, but me. Yeah, that's what I got.
Thank you, Mike. And you guys never have to be sorry for shedding a tear, crying here on the panel. This is your safe place where you can speak and you can actually share the awareness of mental health and addiction awareness. Like it's men don't get vulnerable often, so this is why we're doing this. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because society doesn't allow them. And speaking of society, do you feel fully accepted in recovery or still watched and judged?
100% still watched and judged. Um, I think that there's, um, I deal with a lot. I call them normies, like normal people, and I deal with a lot of them in my life. Um, and a lot of times when they find out what I do, that I have the recovery houses or that I deal with, people in recovery all the time or that I'm in recovery myself, there's such a misunderstanding about it, um, even just trying to open a recovery house, people think, oh, you're bringing druggies to our neighborhood, like, and it's or ruggies, uh, you bring in ruggies to my neighborhood, and that's so far from the truth. These are people who have addiction issues that are clean and sober and trying to get back on their feet and live a good life. So I think that there's still a stigma out there. I think that it's just closed-minded people, and I think that it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. Like it, I mean, I always try to be the best example of someone in recovery to these normies or whatever. I try to be on my best behavior at all times. So they do maybe look at people in recovery differently or addicts differently, you know. But yeah, do you still feel judged and outcasted sometimes? Absolutely. Um, but I don't think that'll ever change, honestly. It's just embedded in a lot of people. And I just wanted to say to Mike, thank you for your vulnerability too, man, because you had me choking up there. I have a daughter, and it's um it's neat to we live two different, complete different lives. So I know I lived a dirty, dungy, grimy life, and I don't live that anymore. And it's really, really neat that my kids call me today and they love me and I love them and I get to be a father. So I understand and I get emotional too, man. You have me choking up over here. So thank you for that. That's all I got.
Uh, it's for me. It's been a long time since I've used, and I I don't necessarily think that it's like only people in recovery that get judged or ruggies that get judged. I think society in general judges people constantly. I think there is like more of the stigma though that comes with being a ruggie. Um, and at the end of the day, man, it's my journey, it's my process. I've been judged by people in recovery. You know what I mean? Um, a lot of like people in my recovery community have judged me recently. You know what I mean? And so I think what it boils down to is like how does Pat feel about Pat today, right? Because at the end of the day, I got to walk this process. I got to walk this journey, and it if you're gonna you judge me if you want, and I always say like if you don't like me, it's probably because you don't know me. You know what I mean? And so yeah, like I think early on in recovery, I got judged a lot more and I was looked at a lot more. Um, but I can say like the recovery process has allowed my mom to have like sleepless night. Like she can go to sleep tonight, right? Like she doesn't have to worry that her son's out there using and getting that phone call from the police that like he's passed away, or my sister worrying like should I bring him around my nieces, or you know what I mean? Can I have him over to see my daughters? Like she doesn't have to worry about any of that. Because there was one point in when I was using rugs that I had gone out for like 3 days, hadn't talked to him. It was only planning on one day, and I had been gone for three. And I finally showed back up at the house, and my mom told me, she's like, "We were planning your funeral. We thought you had died." And so like they haven't had to live like that in a very long time, and I'm grateful that like recovery has given me that gift to give to them, you know, because they deserve it now. And that's all I got.
Uh, yeah, I definitely feel judged still. Um, that's one of the main reasons why I don't go back to where I'm from is because the people there that really know me, a lot of them would judge me, even though they were doing the same stuff I was. They would they would talk all kinds of things. I mean, even to my face. And when you're around people that you really truly like or you think you like and you get that, it's rough. So when you're out among strangers, and I'm very open about my recovery. They say recover out loud, and I'm very open about it. But you can still feel that judgment when people know, because when they look at you, or they, you talk to them for a while or known them for a while, and then you tell them something like that, they're like, "Oh, I have no idea." You can tell when people are like standoffish, or when they're looking at you like, "Okay, well, wait a minute. Can I trust this guy, or should I be around this guy, or whatever?" But I also have to go off what Pat said. you know, we're Society is judging each other every single day. My issues, are a lot of it is mental health stuff. I honestly feel like I'm judged all the time, regardless. But that's a different time for a different podcast. But yeah, I definitely feel judged still, but that's like I said, I'm in a different town. I don't go back to where I was because I just actually my stomach drops out when I get close to there. So for me, I'd rather be where I am and not have to worry about that, running into somebody I know.
Thank you, Mike. The next question. What does being a man in recovery look like for you today? Calm, chaos, discipline, or still healing?
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, am I being honest? It probably anybody who knows me would say chaos. I would say. Um, I mean, inside it's not. I think inside of me is very calm inside, but on the outside it probably looks like chaos, and that's probably because I'm very busy all the time, running here, running there, doing this, doing that. But um, to me, on the inside, is much more calm. And I think also, though, like what Mike was talking, I think some of it, a big part of that, is my mental health, though, too, because I have not yet addressed uh, the mental health part of this. So, but I would say anybody who knows me is gonna say chaotic, extremely chaotic.
Uh, for me, it all depends on the day, man. Um, I will say this: it's a lot less chaotic than active addiction, and it's a lot less chaotic uh, than it was in early recovery. But there's still some days where it can be chaotic. You know, life on life's terms show up. I have character defects still, and sometimes I still react certain types of ways. You know, but for the most part, I live a pretty calm and peaceful life. And but on any given day, like I just want to say, like it's always a healing journey for me. It's always going to be a healing journey. Like I said, I never fully believe that I will be fully healed to the point where every day is going to be rainbows and butterflies, and no matter what life throws at me, I'm going to handle with grace and everything like that. At the end of the day, I'm still human, man. Um, just because I'm in recovery doesn't make me Superman. Um, I'm still gonna have bad days just like every other person in this world, you know. But it's few and far between where my life seems to be like completely out of control and things are just going down the drain constantly. And my chaos probably isn't as chaotic as when I say there's chaos. It's nowhere near how chaotic it was when I was using or in early recovery. You know, so yeah.
I'd say all the above. I mean, the chaos though is in my head. That's where I'm the most chaotic, and that's the hard part for me. Um, I have my calm days, definitely. It's definitely a lot calmer now, not having to worry about finding anything or what the next day is going to hold or how I'm going to feel in a few hours or things like that. But I'm definitely still healing. There's no doubt about that. And some people believe once you are that, you're always that, and I kind of believe that too because there's so many times when I've thought about just going out and having a drink with friends or buddies after work or going to somebody's house for a party or whatever, and I think to myself, oh, I can do this, and then I'm really thinking to myself, no, I can't because it's just going to come right back, and I know that now. 10 years ago, it wouldn't even have mattered. I would have done it, and then I wouldn't have cared. But today, absolutely, absolutely, I know that I'm still healing, and I know that I can't, have just one because one's too many and 10's not enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Um, why did you choose recovery when you did? And yeah,
Hmm. Uh, that's a great question. Um, well, I think I was fresh out of jail for like the I don't know umpteen time. Had been upstate to prison, in and out of county jails. Um, I did a when I got to jail, I woke up in a jail cell, not knowing where I was, not knowing what happened, and I had defecated on myself, and it was probably the most humiliating, just one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. I knew that I had just I'd gotten served divorce papers while I was in jail. Um, I had 2 kids with her. I was told my kids didn't want anything to do with me. And I had just hit a bottom that was like I was broken. Like, I mean, absolutely shattered in half. I had no friends. I had no family. My mom had died from an overdose years before that. My father died from alcoholism. So I was broken. And when you're there, I think like I just I had a tiny, I mean, like a little sliver in me that thought maybe, just maybe, I could do it. And thank God I had that little sliver of hope in me. I had a gentleman that came into prison that did not know me, um, just start coming to visit me, and just like talking hope to me. And I couldn't believe that this dude was just coming in here talking to me, taking some time out. He wasn't getting paid for it, and trying to help me. So like that's when, like, I think the light came on, and I was like, you know what, I got to give this a try. So that's when it happened, I think.
For me, what started the process was um, I was essentially homeless, and I knew if I was living on the streets, I would be using rugs. I just came out of my second or third psych ward, and my parents had told me that I couldn't live with them anymore, and so I checked myself into a rehab, and you would think after that it would be like, okay, he's good. He's going to start. He made this decision on his own. He's going to do it. Um, and then a couple months after getting out of the rehab, um, I'm living in a recovery house, and a couple of my past associates hit me up. They're having a party, and I went out and I used again. And then the substances that I had used, I knew I needed to wait at least 3 days in order to take a rug test and be able to pass it. And having to come back and like be sneaky and like act as if everything was okay, and stay like be on my P's and Q's, and make sure I'm not missing meetings, and make sure I'm doing everything that looks like I hadn't used. I can remember laying in my bed, uh, and the guy coming up to me saying, "Hey, we need to give you a rug test," and it had been like maybe 2.5 days, and me being so nervous to take this test and not knowing if I was going to pass it or not, and like just seeing that faint line show up, and him saying like, "Oh, I knew you would be okay because you're the only one that really does this thing," and then going back up to my room saying, "I don't ever want to live like this ever again. Like, I don't want to live this sneaky life no more. Like, I don't want to be deceitful anymore. Like, I'm sick of having to always worry and be in fear of, and like it's just not worth it to me anymore." Um, and then from then on out, I haven't uh, picked up since. So that's been my process so far.
For me, it was when I found out my daughter was coming, and I stopped everything cold turkey. Literally stopped everything, and I did great for a long time. And then a couple years later, well, it's been 9 years ago this month. Her mom and I split up for the last time, and they moved out, and then it was back on again. And that went on for about 9 or 10 months, and then they had to move back in with me, or had to move in with me because they lost their place. And then I did it again, and I stayed that way. And the first time I did it, I was like, I'm just doing it for her. I'm doing it for her. I'm going to be better for her. And the second time around, I was like, okay, I have to do this for me too, because if it's I don't want to be that person that goes, okay, well, if I lose this one thing, or if this one thing, and I'm not referring to my daughters like a thing, but if I don't have something to hold on to, that I could have an excuse to go back. And I was just like, I need to do this for me as well, because if I don't do it for me, I can't be everything I need to be for her. I can't be that dad. I can't be the one that's going to be there every single day. I can't be the one that's going to, be there. If something happens, I'm not going to be able to be the one that's there, for her school events. And I just knew at that point I have to do it. I'm doing it for her, but I'm doing it for me because I need to be me. I need to be able to have me as a whole person.
Thank you guys. Okay. How did you finally admit I need help when men are raised to hold everything in?
Um, so I think it had a lot to do with the gentleman. I was telling you about the gentleman who came in um, to see me in the jail. He he like you know was the first one who really like told me that it was okay. He made me feel very comfortable in speaking about my feelings, speaking the truth. Like I mean, I cried in front of him, like I mean, cried, like just I mean, bawling my eyes out. The thought of you know, I'm never gonna see my kids again. My kids are my world, man. Like those, they're my world. So like, when he was like he developed a trust between us, and I felt comfortable with that. You know, and I also say that I gotta say this, my wife is very good at allowing me to share my feelings. Like, I think she's the only woman I've ever cried in front of. You know, um, so like she makes me feel comfortable. Like that, and she's in recovery too, so that I think that helps. And she's had a rough life as well, so she understands. But it's good to have people. I will say this: it's good to have people around you that make that normal. That like I don't. When people say that around, like men don't cry and all that, I'm the first one to say, yeah, all right. That's not true. Because people need to know that you have to. For me, I have to get my feelings out sometimes, and some nights I just need to cry, and there's some nights where I just need to let some frustrations out, and maybe I need to dwell about some things that happened so I can heal. So but yeah, he was the first one that made me feel comfortable enough to where I could let that out. Because as I told you guys, I grew up in the system since I was 9 years old. So like I could not cry since I was like 9 years old. You couldn't show weakness. So whether it was in the boys' home, or in a group home, or in prison, or in jail, like you could not do that. It was a sign of weakness. So I'm very, very grateful for that gentleman, for real.
Um, for me, I don't know, man. Cause so I've been to like two rehabs, and the first one I asked for help straight out of manipulation. I did it because I knew it's what my parents wanted me to say. I knew that it would get them off my back. I had a pretty good idea that if I did it, I could come back to the house. So the first time I ever asked for help was sheer manipulation. Um, I did it just to do it. Um, the second time, again, I think it was more of just being in a desperate place and not wanting to use, but knowing I was going to use if I didn't get myself into a safe place. Um, and then, like, you know, I've had to ask for help a lot of times in this process, and it gets easier every time. In the beginning, it was very difficult to ask people for help. I felt like I wasn't doing good. I felt that it made me look weak. I felt like I shouldn't have to ask for help now that I'm not using rugs. And what I found is as long as I'm doing the next right thing for the next right reason, and I continue not to use rugs, and I continue to keep working on myself and showing up as much as I can for other people, people tend to be more willing to show up for me as well. You know, the reason why, like, a lot of times I didn't ask for help because I knew the answer was going to be no. You know, I knew like what's the point? And a part of the ego and the pride of I can do this on my own. I don't need that. I'm grown. I can do this. You know, one of the, I used to work in treatment, and one of the people that I worked with would tell all the clients, we'd have clients in there that would be like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm grown. Oh, really? Then why are you in here? Because we're the one that's housing you. We're the ones that are feeding you. How grown are you? And like to put it in that perspective is like, yeah, man, like I thought I was grown, but I wasn't grown, man. I was a little boy just surviving the best way he knew how. Um, so now like it's a lot easier for me to ask for help. I'm not afraid to ask for help. Um, because I know that like if I will never ask anybody for something that I can't provide them, you know, and I can show up for people today. So yeah, it's gotten easier to ask for help as I continued along this process.
I never asked for help, unfortunately, because if I asked for help, that means then I would have to admit there was a problem. And I didn't want to be in front of somebody and say, hey, I have this problem. I have this issue. This is what's going on. And so I hid it and I kept it in. And like my daughter's mom, she knows more about me than anybody else because she's been through all of it with me, you know. And but I never just flat out asked, you know. I had people knew obviously, but I couldn't just go and be like, hey, this is what's going on. I need to do something about it. Now, if I do ask for help with anything at all, especially when it comes to like social media, I'll do it on a post or I'll put it to my story or something like that because I feel embarrassed having to ask for help for anything. I feel ashamed of it. I don't know if that will ever go away. I hope it does. But on the flip side of that, I love when people ask me for help because I want to be there for other people. But as far as I go, if I ask for help, it's in a text message, it's on a post, it's in a DM, something like that, because that part of me still can't be face to face with somebody, look them in the eye and say, I need help. Because that's just, like I said, I feel embarrassed and I feel ashamed.
Thank you, Mike. Um, what part of sobriety surprised you the most? The peace, the boredom, the clarity, or responsibility?
Uh, Definitely not the peace or the clarity. I love all. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Um, Probably, I would say the responsibility. Um, it's funny because you want all this good stuff to happen, right? And you want to have all, and good things do happen, whether you want, like, whether you like it or not. I think automatically when you get clean and sober, good things are going to happen to you. Pretty much, you don't have to do much, and I know it happened in my life. That's my experience anyway. And you know, I have a ton of responsibilities today. I don't think the responsibilities surprise me. I think it's the way I handle my responsibilities today that surprises me. That I'm on top of things pretty good, and I do because I was never responsible in you know, in active addiction at all. And I just didn't care. You know, I had one thing on my mind and that was it. So I think, yeah, I think what surprises me the most is I don't know if you call it, so just the way things go in your life, just how, uh, just really just how you can enjoy cool moments, you know, and enjoy life again without having anything in my system. Just, you know, just like watching my kids play or why, like I cannot wait for Christmas to watch my son, my 7-year old, open his presents. Like, boy, that gives me like joy, you know, and just stuff like that, just little things like that, you know, watching football again and really being into it, you know, and being into my team and enjoying watching that and just, you know, going on vacation with my wife, just like enjoying moments today is really cool. But I don't think it's, I mean, it does surprise me that so many good things can happen to someone who did so many bad things in their life. I guess that's what surprises me the most, you know. When I say bad things, I just mean like, you know, I was a crappy person, man. So, you know, you would think that I would never be able to enjoy nice a good life, and that's just not true.
Uh, I think for me, I wouldn't say that recovery and sobriety is boring. Um, because like what was boring was I was so used to the chaotic life that I was living for so long that it just seemed boring. Um, but what I found is like, you know, like not having to worry about going out to a club or a bar and getting thrown out or getting into a fight or doing anything like that. Um, not having to worry about how I'm going to pay the rent, not worrying about like all those things that the chaos brought in my life. So like to me, I like boring. Boring is peaceful. Boring is easy. I'm a homebody. I like just like chilling at home. I'll go out from time to time, but I really don't like being out all night and doing all that stuff like I used to, man. And probably comes with a little bit of age too. I've gotten older in this process, and you know, but early on in recovery, I liked doing all this stuff. You know, I liked being out late and drinking Red Bull at 2 in the morning, and you know, talking crap about this, that, or the third, and going to the diners and doing all that. Now you know, I go out and I do what I gotta do, and I just want to come home and chill, you know. And you know, I think what's surprised me again in Jeremy is like the responsibility aspect, and like I'll kind of like piggyback off of kind of like what he said, like you know, the recovery process and being in sobriety um, brings things back in my life, right? And and it's kind of like a contradiction to each other because like you know my number one priority is to not use rugs anymore, right? Um, but those same things that like kept me from not using rugs um, are the same things that the responsibilities pull me away from, right? So like early on in my process, like I attended a lot of meetings. I was big into our process and the healing part of our process and going to all these functions and all these events. Well, now like I have more responsibilities now, and I can't do all those things like I used to early on, right? I don't have the time anymore to do it. Um, so like, it the responsibility of life on life's terms, man, and being able to show up when I couldn't show up before, not realizing how many birthday parties I missed, how many bills I didn't pay, how many, you know, expensive things there were in the world. Like I didn't realize all that stuff because my number one priority was to take my money and spend it on rugs. And like now like I'm grateful when I can pay my car note, ahead of schedule. I'm grateful that like every week I show up with my rent. I'm grateful for like all those things, man. But it's those same things that like and maybe like what surprises me the most is even with a little over like 10 and a half years in this process, like I still need to do the same things that I had to do in the beginning, right? Because if I don't, I feel that. I feel it in my spirit. I feel it in my attitudes and my behaviors start to change. Like if I don't stay connected and plugged into like what kept me in the beginning here, like I am not exempt. With all that time, I am not exempt. On any given day, I can have a bright idea like maybe I can just have one, you know? One won't hurt. It's been 10 and a half years. I'll just stop the next day. Even though I know for a fact, because I've tried it before, that it'll start off with one day, then it'll turn into the weekend, then it will turn into an everyday thing, and then my life will be blown up within a matter of months. And so I think the most surprising thing is like, no matter how much time I get, no matter like how much healing I do, there's more to be done, and you still have to continue to do it. So I think that's what surprises me the most about sobriety.
Man, everything surprised me. Life surprised me, and I'm going to piggyback off of both Jeremy and Pat when I say that you know responsibility is means something different when you're not doing the things you were doing. I used to love going out and being in the clubs and being in front of people, and now it's like I don't like big crowds. That's why this time of the year is kind of hard for me because you go to the store and there's people everywhere, and I'm not a people-eating person anymore. Uh, but everything is just it's you realize there's more to life than what you had. Food is better. Um, you realize that there's oceans to see, or that there's forests to see, or you can look up at night and realize there's stars in the sky. I mean, it's people might think I'm crazy with what I'm saying, but what surprises you is life. There's because you're so focused on you and what's happening in that moment, you don't realize, or at least you stop realizing what's going on around you. And it's the little things, you know, being able to get up and not feel like you don't want to get up. Let's put it that way, or like you want to unalive or things like that because of just the way you feel. You know, you can get up in the morning, and I love cold cereal, so I can get up in the morning. I can have cold cereal and not have to worry about you know how I'm going to feel after I eat it. Things like that. It's just everything surprises you, or at least it was with me anyway. Like I said, right down to the way food tastes and your interactions with people, and you know, not having to worry about going in front of your family because of how you are, or how you feel, or any of that stuff. Everything around you is a surprise because you don't realize what's there until you get that clarity, I guess is what it is. And you have that clarity for more than a couple hours. It's, oh, there really is things around here, and it's it's scary, but it's kind of a fun, cool feeling at the same time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Jeremy. Back when people saw you only as an addict, how did you or how did that shape your mental health and self-worth? And part two of that question is, how different does it feel now that you're viewed as someone in recovery and transformation?
Oh wow. Um, yeah, I had extremely low self-esteem. I looked at myself very, very badly. I did not think of myself. I had people describing me as an animal. Like um, people did not like me for good reason. You know, and I think that uh, played a big part in my mental health. Um, I had a lot of behavioral issues as a child, as a kid, and I think my addiction started very, very young. So um, I don't think I ever really had a chance to get like a good diagnosis, I guess, on my mental health. Because like I said, I started young and I was never really clean and sober for that long. So, just didn't have, but it played a big part. I had extremely low self esteem. Um, I was just I was very angry, extremely angry child, extremely angry person. I fought a lot, got in a lot of different fights. Um, and, um, like I said, it just, it played a big part in things. Now in recovery, totally different. And it's just because you know, my process was through the 12 steps of program and with a sponsor, and I think through that I started digging at a lot of the stuff that was going on inside of me and getting that stuff out. And I went through a lot of different. I'm not gonna say I just went to one program. I went to a bunch of different programs from you know all the different ones. I'll just say that. I don't know if you're allowed to say them. So um, but I went to a bunch of different 12-step programs and a bunch of different programs, and I saw psychiatrists and I saw counselors, and that uh, I think that helped me a lot in recovery. Um, and today, definitely look at myself differently. Like I said before, I still have a lot of work to do. Um, it doesn't matter how long, how many years you're clean and sober. I think things come up. Things come up, and you have to deal with them. But that's the cool part is I think in addiction, when things come up, we just sweep it under the rug and say, "Well, we're not dealing with that." You know what I mean? Because we got to get high. So today, as things come up, I get to deal with them. So. But definitely different today. Like my self esteem is much better. There are times I do have depression and anxiety and stuff like that. Um, but it has definitely gotten better. And I do have a process that I can use today. Like I have, some things that I go through in my mind that help, and I learned that in recovery. So
I think for me, I think I had low self-esteem and low self-worth even before the drugs came into play, or the rugs. I used food in the beginning. I used fantasy in the beginning, and the rugs were just the end result of trying to fix that internal self worth that I didn't have. It was so much easier just to take rugs and not
Second,
have
Pat.
to really
One second, Pat.
take rugs and not have to deal with that type of stuff. Um, And then the insanity of it is when I used rugs and things started to get bad, it just brought on more shame, more guilt, more low self worth, more low self confidence, and everything else because of how I was behaving and the things that I was doing while in active addiction. And like still to this day, like even working through a program, like the difference is there was no days where I loved myself. Um, and now like there's some days like I get out the shower and I see myself in the mirror, I'm like, oh man, you're a sexy mofo. And then there's other days when I get out the shower and I look myself in the mirror and I can nitpick and poke at all the things that I don't like about myself. And but at least I have some of those days where I love myself a little bit more. And like I said, the more time that I stay in this process, the more that builds, and it's gotten better. It gets better. I feel each and every year. And I know like eventually like there's gonna come up, and I don't ever know if I'm gonna 100% love the person that I am, but I'm working towards it, and that's all I can really do, you know. Um, so yeah, that's that's what it's been for me.
Oh boy, where do I begin with this one? Uh, I had a lot of confidence in high school. I had a lot of confidence when I was working in the service industry, but it was fake. It was fake confidence. It was disguised. It was, I didn't, if I wasn't in the clubs and I was out and about, I didn't have it, Today I have a lot of mental health stuff going on. A lot. And well, I know we'll get into that more, next month, but you know, my demons are still my demons. Um, I was about to make a post the other day about the most toxic relationship a man can have is with his own demons. And you can tell them to go away, you can tell them to be quiet. And once they go away and they're quiet, you want them to come back because that's all you know and because that's comfortable. Those same demons that are willing to fight for you are the same ones that are tearing you down every single day. And that's what I fight with. I fight definitely with, you know, my physical appearance, especially because when I get up in the mornings and I look in the mirror, I'm like, who's this old guy? And when I look at him, it's like, that's not me. I mean, that's why I don't stand in front of a mirror too much. That's why I don't make a lot of videos, is because I don't like the sound of my voice, and I definitely don't like the way I look, you know. Um, but my mental health stuff stems from, early on, and it also stems from the fact that I have a chemical imbalance. So I fight with a lot of that every day. Um, I tell myself all the time, or I say every day, I wish I had a normal functioning brain. It would be really, really cool, because I don't know what it's like to be quiet. Even when I'm asleep, my dreams are loud. My voices, my demons are telling me, that I'm no good and that I'm ugly and that, I'm worthless and all the bad things. So for me, it's a constant struggle every single day. What I can say about now versus then is the fact that back then, it was easy to escape because I could do that one thing or do those couple things and then I wouldn't have to worry about it because I didn't care. I was numb to it. Now it's I'm facing it and it's hard some days because I know I'm going to have to take certain things, certain prescriptions for the rest of my life, and that kind of sucks. And my demons tell me then, look, you can't even have a normal, functioning brain because of this stuff. And that's the hard part for me. And like I said, I still struggle with it every day. And when you have those demons, no matter what somebody tells you, you're a good person or, you look good or things like that, what what really what really matters is what's in your head. And it's hard to get around that. And it's hard every day to get around it. It's hard every day to get up and deal with it and to face it. And, some days are harder than others, and some days, aren't as bad. But, if that's something I wish I could change about myself, I'll tell you that's it. It would definitely be the thoughts and the negative and the demons. I wish I could make those go away.
Thank you, guys. This next question is for anyone who's done time. Um, what was the hardest part about returning to society sober? And did being clean in jail make reintegration easier or emotionally harder?
Um, oh, wow. Well, first of all, I'll say that uh, there is no good reentry from prison. I just put it that way. It is a big part of the system that's missing. They just let you out and say good luck. Don't come back, knowing that you're coming back. So I'll just put that out there. Um, there, I don't know if um, be, does it, I don't know if it makes it easier being clean in jail and then coming out. I think jail's like a whole nother world, and it's usually easier to get drugs in jail than it is on the streets, pretty much. So, um, you know, it's I think it does kind of prepare you, I guess, like because I've done jail time and stayed clean through that jail time, so I know what that's like. And I've also been to jail and been high the whole time I was in jail and just wanted to wanted to be high because I didn't want to deal with what I was going through, being in prison. But I mean, that's a hard question because I don't know if it prepares you. I don't think prepare a jail or prison definitely does not prepare you for society whatsoever. There's no like, you know, there's just not, if you don't have family and you don't have friends or you don't have anyone on the outside, you're in big trouble. You are most likely going to get out and wind up back because you can't survive because there's no, you know, you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have a job. You can't survive. So, um, that's definitely a tough question. And it's something, um, that our society is missing, especially in this area, um, in the Lehigh Valley. It is something that's missing big time, I would say. It's like some sort of like reentry process where you can, come out slowly, I guess. Like, help you with a job and with a place and with that sort of thing. A career, not just a job, but like a career. So, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that because I've done it both ways. Been high in prison. I've stayed clean in prison, and both times it's just hard. If you don't have any support on the outside, I'm gonna say it's almost impossible not to come back. So,
This one I gotta skip.
Yeah, I don't have anything to reference on this one either.
That's no problem. So my last question for you gentlemen tonight is, if you could sit across from someone who's in early recovery or fighting relapse every day, what would you, unfiltered, say to them?
uh, well, I mean, I just went through this with a friend of mine. Um, I would tell them that they're worth it, that there's a purpose for them to do something in this world, um, and that they can do it. And I know that it feels impossible right now because I know how it felt for me, but that um, there are people out here that do care if they get clean and sober, and there are resources for them, and they can utilize those resources and to never give up. and it doesn't matter if, I know it feels impossible when you're in the middle of using, and you just feel overwhelmed with, you start thinking about the withdrawal, and you start thinking about this, and you start thinking about that, all the things that that you're going to go through if you stop using. But you got to think about the good things too, getting your family back, getting the respect back, finally learning how to love yourself. And I would just tell them that, please, don't give up hope. Even if you quit one day and you use the next, just keep trying. Eventually it'll stick, and you will not regret it, because it will change your life dramatically. It will change your life dramatically. And that's what I would tell them. Like, just don't give up trying. I am not a first time winner, second time, third time, fourth. Like, it took a long time. I'm 50 years old, and it took me a long time, a bump in my head. And I am so glad that I persevered through all that stuff, and I went through what I had to go through. But my life today is wonderful, is beautiful compared to how it was. So I would just tell them that, please don't give up. People out here love you. People who don't even know you, I promise you, they love you. And you have a purpose, and follow that purpose. That's what I would tell them.
Boy, I I would tell them, a lot of like what Jeremy said, like you're worth it. Um, and the people that you think don't love you, it's not that they don't love you, it's that they're doing what they got to do in order to protect themselves from you right now. Um, and I just tell them, like, give yourself a chance, man. Give yourself a break. And like let them know, like, when you're willing, when you have that willingness, like, I'm here for you. Like, I'll go above. I'm willing to go above and beyond for anybody that's trying to stop. You know, I'll make the calls. I can do all that stuff. I got connections with some people that I can make phone calls to and walk you through that process. But like, like what I found is, like, I've done that for some people, and at the end of the day, they never really wanted it to begin with. So I would say, once you're willing and you're ready, when you're truly ready to stop, like, there's people here for you, that will go above and beyond for you. Um, and then I'd also tell them, like, hey, if you don't think this is for you, give it a year. And if your life doesn't improve within a year, you can always return back to like what you know, you know. And yeah, I just try to support them and give them as much encouragement as I possibly could, and let them know that, like, there's a lot more resources out there than you think. Like, you no longer have to be sick to get, to stop using rugs. Like, there's lots of things out there that can keep you comfortable and not really have to go through as much pain as you used to back in the day. You know, and yeah, that's all I would let them know.
So so here's where my bluntness comes in is I would tell them first thing. I said it's gonna suck at first. It's gonna be horrible. You're gonna hate it. And you know what? That's the part you have to get through. That's the part you have to get past, because once you don't, you're not, you're going to be scared, but you're not going to be as scared. And once you start getting past those points of, I don't feel good, it gets better. As cliche as it sounds, and you're going to hear this all through your recovery. You're going to hear so many cliches, you're going to be able to write a book on it. It's going to drive you nuts. But at the same time, you're going to look back at it and go, they were right. You know, uh, piggybacking off both Jeremy and Pat again, it's letting somebody know that there's somebody that cares. There's somebody here that loves them. There's somebody here that knows they can do it. There's somebody here that wants to see them do it and do it for themselves. Do it for the person they want to be, the person they know they can be. If somebody comes to me or anybody else and says they want to try it, they want to start it, that to me says something. That to me says they acknowledge something's going wrong. That they don't want to live this life anymore. They don't want to wake up feeling like this anymore or going through their day feeling like this anymore. And it doesn't matter if you're, living on the streets or you live in $1 million mansion. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's addiction doesn't pick and choose. Addiction is addiction. And it's for the way I believe, it's who you are, unfortunately, you know. But the last thing that I would tell them is one breath, one step, one day at a time. That's just how you gotta take it.
To my guests, thank you, not just for showing up and speaking, but for surviving long enough to tell it. Men aren't often given a space to be vulnerable and to admit fear, to talk about slipping, about craving, about crying, about losing everything and still trying again. Today, you all took that space and you held it with strength, grace, and accountability. To anyone listening who is struggling, recover. Recovery isn't pretty, it isn't linear, and it isn't one moment. It's a lifetime of choosing yourself, even when you don't recognize the person in the mirror. You heard three different journeys today, three different rock bottoms, three different comebacks, but one truth. You are not too far gone to rewrite yourself. If you need help, ask. If you need support, reach out. If you woke up breathing today, you're still in the fight, and I'm proud of you for that. I'm Kay. This is Unfiltered, the podcast, where we keep it real, raw, and want to keep you aware. See you next week. Bye.